If you landed on this video, it's because you're working in DaVinci Resolve, you've got your clips in there, and you have no audio, and you want to pull your hair out, and that's why I have none. No, but seriously, there are a whole bunch of different reasons why DaVinci Resolve might not be playing any audio for you, from things that have to do with the clip, your computer, DaVinci Resolve settings, a whole bunch of things. So we are going to go through them step by step in this video. I'm going to timestamp everything at the bottom so you can jump along the tips, find what might work for you. Hopefully one of these is going to get the job done, get that audio working in DaVinci Resolve for you, and help you to start creating some awesome videos. Now, some of these might seem like super obvious, and you might be like, why would you even mention that? Like turning up your volume. But believe me, there are some simple, basic things that you want to check when we're trying to get our audio to work in Resolve here that people just overlook. Maybe you just forget or whatever. I don't know. Sometimes you just forget to look at the obvious, right? So let's jump on the computer. We're going to check out a whole bunch of different things here. This whole video is going to be a podcast too, so if you want to listen to this video while you're trying to figure things out, I'm going to explain it the best I can for the podcast listeners out there. But let's jump into Resolve. On the computer, we're going to talk about all these different things you can check to get that audio working in DaVinci Resolve. Let's go. So before we even jump into DaVinci Resolve, which we will be in a minute, there's some things that you want to take a look at on your computer and make sure they're set up properly to set you up for success once you get into DaVinci Resolve. If these things on your computer are set up good, then you know once you get into Resolve, the problem is going to be inside of Resolve. But before that, if these settings aren't correct on your computer, you may have issues, and it could be either your computer or DaVinci Resolve. So we're going to start on the computer, check these settings, and let's get into these couple things here that you want to make sure are set up good before you even open DaVinci Resolve. So let's get into that first. So the first thing you want to do is make sure your volume is up on your computer. You're not muted. That volume and audio is good to go on your computer. Now you may be thinking, well, who does that, right? You'd actually be surprised how many people just have a simple error like that where you forget to turn up your volume, or maybe it's just muted. So you want to check that out. The first thing is to check the volume on your computer and make sure that it's turned up. The next thing you want to do is try your audio outside of DaVinci Resolve. Maybe you have a clip that has video and audio associated with it, and you can try that outside of Resolve. Open it up, make sure it works with your, QuickTime player or whatever it is that's on your computer that plays your default audio or audio and video files. Make sure it works outside of Resolve. If it works outside of Resolve, it should work once we get into Resolve, but you want to check that. Just make sure that it works outside of Resolve. So that's going to be the second thing that I would take a look at. So before you even get into Resolve, the next thing that you want to check is make sure that your audio file is compatible with DaVinci Resolve. Now, most files are compatible with DaVinci Resolve. For me, I run into very few, if any, that are not compatible with Resolve. But I'm going to go ahead and throw a few things on the screen here that shows you the compatible formats for both macOS, Windows, as well as CUDA. This all comes from a document that Blackmagic has posted on their website. It tells you what is compatible as far as videos, stills, and audio. So you want to make sure that you've got a compatible format. If you don't, you could use something like the free program Handbrake. You can go and convert that audio into something that is compatible. You can't just change the file extension on it, from, I don't know, for example, MP4 to MVA. Is that Windows? I don't know. I'm a Mac guy. I don't know. But you can't. You don't want to just change the end of your file there. You actually want to convert it. So if you're having problems, you may need to convert it. But I'll link this document in either in the comments or the description, so you can go look at this as well, download it, and make sure that your audio file is compatible with DaVinci Resolve. So that's the next thing I would check. Another thing that you want to check before you even get into DaVinci Resolve is to check and make sure that you have your correct output device set on your computer. For example, you're using headphones, make sure that is set as the default for your computer output before you open Resolve. You want to make sure it's set before you open Resolve, because if you open Resolve and then switch it around, sometimes you need to change that in DaVinci Resolve. It's not going to automatically change it for you. So you want to check that. If you're using speakers, maybe it's your internal speakers on your computer, maybe you've got some monitors or external speakers, make sure it's set as the default on your computer before you even open Resolve. It's just going to save you some headaches and allow Resolve to say, oh, yep, that's the one you want. I'm going to use that too. We're good to go. And a quick note, when you are setting the default, if you're using Bluetooth speakers, just don't. Just don't use Bluetooth with Resolve. It may cause issues. It doesn't always. I've had it work okay. But a lot of times when people are having issues, it's because they're trying to use Bluetooth headphones and maybe it connects to the computer fine, but Resolve doesn't see it, or maybe there's a latency problem or a delay. You're better off just not using Bluetooth headphones when you're working in Resolve.
Doesn't matter on the rest of your computer. That's fine, whatever you want to do. But I like the old school wired headphones here because it's going to give you, just a solid connection right into your computer, and Resolve is going to play better with that versus using Bluetooth. So you can use Bluetooth. I'm not saying you can't. I'm just saying there's a chance it might not work so good. And in my experience, I don't like using Bluetooth headphones. I've got a few different pairs. I've tried them. I just prefer going with wired headphones, or I've got monitor speakers that I'll use. So that's a word of caution about Bluetooth there. It may be a little wonky for you when you try to use those Bluetooth speakers or headphones in Resolve. So keep that in mind. So the next thing that you want to check, and again, this is all before we get in Resolve, we want to check our sample rate for our headphones and our speakers. Now, you can change that on your computer. You got to jump into your computer settings there. And what I would recommend is going with 48 kilohertz or 48 hertz. Kilohertz, 48 kilohertz. Because when you get into Resolve and you're working with video and audio, generally you want that sample rate to be at 48K. And we need our speakers or our headphones to match the settings we have in DaVinci Resolve. Super important. Otherwise, your audio may come out, but it may sound all garbled up and, just choppy and just not work properly. So the sample rate, you want to check it for the device that you're using, whether it's headphones or speakers. Check that and make sure that it's going to match whatever your project is going to be. Again, I would recommend 48 kilohertz. Make sure that's what it's set as on your computer before you even jump into DaVinci Resolve. Now, for example, I am on a Mac here. If you're on a PC, it's going to be a little bit different, obviously. But on a Mac here, I'm in my my MIDI setup, and I can see my Evo 4 right here. And format, I've got 4-channel, 24-bit integer, 48 kilohertz. So that's what I want my speaker to be set at, and I'd recommend that you use the 48K as well for your output. And you can see it's set up as my output. This is my default. If you're on a PC, just double check that your sample rate or your settings there, your format for your microphone or your speakers or your output device is at 48K. I think it's going to make things easier for you once you jump into DaVinci Resolve. The next thing is something that is Windows only, and you want to go into, let me see, I got it written down here because I'm a Mac guy, but people have left comments on this being an issue for them. On the Windows system, you want to go to System, Sound, Volume Mixer, and then take a look at the apps that are in there and make sure the DaVinci Resolve app is not muted. I guess for some reason on some Windows systems, that app has the volume muted for it. I don't know if that's true or not for everybody. I'm not really sure. I don't know why that was for, some people who left that comment. But that's one thing that you can check. Jump in there and make sure that that app is not muted in your computer settings, right? Because otherwise you're not going to hear anything regardless out of DaVinci Resolve. So make sure that app is good to go in your Windows PC settings. Now, again, on Windows, one other thing you may need to check is your advanced audio settings. And here's the things that you should take a look at in there. So take a look at my PC desktop here. Say hello to Mr. Yoda. You want to come over to your sound settings right here and go ahead and right click on it and come on up to sounds. Once you're in the sound window here, come on over to playback and you're going to see all the different options that you have here for playing back. Now, currently I'm using this one right here because it's my audio interface, my Audient Evo 4, but you can see you've got other options in here. I've got some wireless headsets, my headphone, and then you've also got your speakers down here. So you may need to select the one that you have active right now. So I'm going to come back to this main output. You want to come to your properties, and then inside properties here, come on over to advanced. Now under this default format right here, it says select the sample rate and bit depth to be used when running in shared mode. So you want to click on this guy. Now mine's already on studio quality, the highest one that you can have. But a lot of times I think people are down here at something below DVD quality. And from what I've seen, from what some people have said, is that if you come into here and for your headphones or your speakers, if you go ahead and select the 2-channel, 16-bit, 48,000 hertz, DVD quality. Now, the number of channels might be different on your machine. I don't know. You got to take a look and see what you got, but make sure you have it set for DVD quality or better. So if I just cancel out of this and let's say I come down and take a look at my speakers here, my normal speakers, I'm gonna come to properties. Let's go to advanced. And right here, you can see it's still on studio quality here. But, for example, some people may have this right here, CD quality. You want it to be 48,000 hertz, DVD quality. So once you change these settings, go ahead and save it, close it down. And if you got DaVinci Resolve open, you want to go ahead and restart that. So that way, all these changes will definitely take effect once you open up DaVinci Resolve. All right, so I think we are finally ready to jump into DaVinci Resolve here, but if you don't have that other stuff set up properly before you even open Resolve and before you even get in there, you're going to have problems and everything you do in Resolve is not going to work for you. So check all these things first. Now we are going to jump into DaVinci Resolve and let's start taking a look at some things here in Resolve that we can just see if they're working and set up properly to make sure that we're getting some audio in our videos here. So right now I'm in the Edit tab right here, and I'd recommend just jump in here, start in the Edit tab with me, and I am going to actually come and reset my UI layout so we are all looking at the same thing here, and hopefully we should be able to match up your interface with my interface. So I'm going to go Workspace and come on down to Reset UI Layout and click on that. So now we are reset here. Again, I am in the Edit tab, so jump into the Edit tab. The first thing is an easy thing that we want to check, and we want to come into our area just above our timeline, and over here we've got several buttons. We have a mute button, right? You want to make sure that that is not checked on. We have a volume button, or volume slider, I should say, so make sure that that is all the way up. And then you've got this dim button, which if I click that, we notice that our volume slider turns yellow, and this essentially drops our volume back to about 50% or so, somewhere around there. I think it's around 50%. Either way, it drops that volume back so you don't have to play with the volume slider, and it's automatically just going to cut that volume back for you. So make sure that the dim is turned off, your volume is up, and you are not muted right here. That's the first thing you want to check. Play through your clip and see if you hear any audio. Now, if you don't hear any audio after checking this little part right here, what you want to do is jump into your preferences, and we want to make sure that DaVinci Resolve is set up to send our audio out to whatever our device is. In my case, it's headphones, maybe it's speakers for you, whatever it is, you want to make sure Resolve is sending it out to the right spot. Now, sometimes it's going to just pick the wrong default. It does it for me sometimes. I don't know why, but here's how you fix it. Let's go on up to DaVinci Resolve at the top left, come down to Preferences, and this is going to be the same on PC or Mac, just so you guys know. In our preferences here, you want to click on System, and then we have Video and Audio I/O, in/out. And right here, we've got audio in and out. Now, you want to take a look at this section here, and where we are looking right now is Output Device. Now, right now, mine says Telestream Audio Capture because that's my screen recording software. But you can click on this drop-down, and there's going to be different things in here. So typically, mine is going to be set for Evo 4, which is my audio interface. But I do have other like combination of speakers and setups and things. So for example, this Black Hole 16 channel, for some reason that gets selected randomly sometimes. And when that's selected, I get no audio out of Resolve. Nothing. Zilch. Nada. So you want to make sure that you've got the correct output device set here. And then you can go ahead and save your settings, give it a try, see if you hear any of your audio. Now, if you don't, come back into this window again in Preferences. And right here, we've got Automatic Speaker Configuration. Now, that is probably going to be checked on. Automatic speaker configuration is probably going to be checked on by default, I believe. But you can uncheck this. And then we got Monitor Speaker Configuration. And down in here, we've got different options. We can just change the output to be whatever our output device is. Headphones, speakers, whatever it might be for you. In my case, again, it's Telestream Audio Capture because I'm recording my screen right now. So that's how Resolve gets the audio recorded from my screen recording program. But if I click the drop down, you can see right now all I have is the Telestream Audio Capture. But if I was not recording the screen, then you would see other options there, and you'd probably see either your speakers, your headphones, whatever it might be. So check that out. Make sure you are, have the correct outputs there as well for your speakers. And monitor setup here, you can leave as main. That should be fine. You shouldn't have to worry about that format, and you could leave that as stereo as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and cancel out of here since mine is okay right now. Once we make sure we've got our speaker configuration is good and we told Resolve, hey, this is where I want you to send my audio out to, we can start looking at other things here in Resolve. So in my timeline here, I've got a sample, and right now mine plays, but let's say I still wasn't hearing any audio. Here's the next thing that I could check that's fairly easy. I would want to select my clip, and I want to open my inspector. And in my inspector, I want to come to the audio tab right here, and I want to make sure that my volume is not all the way down. For some reason, it might be all the way down, and if you don't see waveforms here, that could be one indication that, oh, my volume's all the way down. If you want to make sure it's at 0, or if your waveforms look pretty small, you can always boost that up to get a little more gain out of your clip there, and then see if you can hear it then. So I'm going to reset my volume here. Now, if you don't see your waveforms, here's how you can make sure that they are showing if Resolve is able to see them. Come on to your timeline view options right here, and come down to this option right here, and this is going to be our waveforms. If I have it turned off, notice we don't see any waveforms. If I go ahead and turn it on, now we do see our waveforms. And then these couple audio view options down here are just different options for how you can see your waveform, so you can adjust those if you need to. You can also make your audio track a little bit bigger there too. So by having this top one checked on, you're making sure that you can see the audio waveforms if they're available, and Resolve can read them. So the next thing that I want to check is in my mixer. I want to make sure my faders are up. So I know the volume's okay in my clip. I see the waveforms. Let's check the mixer. So come on up to the top of the screen. Go ahead and click on the mixer. And down in our mixer here, I currently only have 2 tracks. I have bus 1, which is my main output coming out of Resolve. And I have my MKR, it's supposed to be MKE 600 audio track. Now, I want to make sure that these sliders right here, which are called the faders, we want to make sure that that's zeroed out. So you can just double click on it and it's going to be at 0, 0. But if that fader was all the way down for some reason, either one of them, then we're not going to get any audio. And if I play through my clip, you can see right now we're getting nothing. Nothing's happening. If I double click it, it's going to reset them to 0.
It can be super frustrating, but there's a whole...
And now I can see my levels, the meters are moving, and I hear my audio. So if you see the meters moving, that means Resolve's reading your audio. You should be able to hear that audio coming out of DaVinci Resolve. But let's say the meters aren't moving at all. You're still not getting any audio. So far, you've checked all these things. Everything looks good. What's the next thing that we can check? Well, if we click on our clip here, and if you have audio that's associated with a video clip, which I'm assuming that you do because we're working in Resolve here with our video, you know what I'm saying? What we can do is select our clip. We can right-click on our clip, come to Clip Attributes, open that up, and it's going to bring up our little attributes window. We want to go to the audio section right here, and under the audio section, we have source channel. Now, sometimes, for whatever the reason, when we bring our audio clips in, the source channel there is set to mute. So if I click on the little drop down here, you can see I've got mute, embedded 1, embedded 2, and linked 1. So if this is muted, for example, I'm going to go ahead and mute those. I'm going to hit OK. You notice my waveform disappears. I don't see my waveform. I can't raise or lower the volume. I don't know what's going on. And if I play through my clip, I don't hear anything. There's no audio there. Well, we need to change that so that the clip is using the proper audio output that's embedded in that clip. I hope that makes sense. So I'm going to right click again, click Clip Attributes, Audio section. Now, the embedded audio is what I recorded when I used the microphone on my camera. So that's going to be my embedded channel 1 and channel 2. That's my right and left channels. Linked 1 is because I recorded a mono track with an external microphone directly into my computer, which gives me better audio. So I sync them up in post. But you want to make sure that you don't have mute selected on either one of the channels if you're in stereo. If you're in mono, you're only going to have one option there, and that should be just fine. So you want to make sure linked audio or linked channel 1, in my case, linked channel 1, which is essentially working out to be like a mono track. But make sure that your audio is not muted for any of your channels. If you only hear it coming out of one side of your speaker, could be that this is muted in either your right or left channel if it's a stereo track. So check these out. They can cause problems sometimes, and it's a quick, easy fix just to change the source channel to the correct thing, hit OK. Boom, there's my waveforms. We're back, and we're good to go. So for the next couple tips here, we're going to jump over into Fairlight, where we can have a little more control over what's going on with the audio and a couple more things that we can check. So we are going to jump into Fairlight, little musical notes at the bottom here. Jump into Fairlight. Just going to make our track a little bigger here. So the first thing that we can check is to make sure that our audio track is getting sent to our bus 1, which is our main output from DaVinci Resolve. Essentially, by default, Resolve sends all of our tracks to bus 1, and then bus 1 sends everything out of DaVinci Resolve. So taking a look in Fairlight here, you want to have your mixer open, and in our mixer, we want to scroll down and take a look for bus outputs right here. Now, if you don't see the bus outputs, you can click on these 3 little dots and then make sure that bus outputs, where are you? Bus outputs right there is checked on. If that's checked on, you should see it in your mixer here, and you can use your middle mouse wheel to scroll up and down in the mixer. Now, under that bus output section, sometimes, for whatever reason, that bus 1 that we see here right now is not there, so I'm going to get rid of it. Now, if I play through my video here, we can see the meter moving on the track 1, but we don't see anything moving on that bus 1. And if nothing's moving on bus 1, nothing is actually getting sent out of DaVinci Resolve. So we need to make sure that all of our audio tracks are getting sent to our main out or our bus 1. And DaVinci Resolve calls your main output bus 1 by default. You can change the name of it if you want, but by default, it's called bus 1. In order to do that, again, that bus output section in your mixer, there's a couple different ways you can do it, but this is the quickest and easiest way. Bus outputs in your mixer, click on that plus, and then click bus 1. So now our channel that we have now, our audio channel 1, track 1, is getting sent to that main bus output. So now if I come back and I play through my clip, we should hear our audio.
What we're talking about in this video, and this is the sample that I've got.
And we can see that both meters are moving down here, both our bus 1 as well as our audio track 1. Now, sometimes you may not see that bus 1 in your mixer, so you can get this little icon here and drag it over. If you have a lot of tracks, you can pull this out, expand it, and then look for that bus 1. It should be there, but if you don't see it for some reason, sometimes it's turned off, so you just can't see it. It's still there, but you just can't see it. So in order to turn on that bus 1 bus, so we can see it, come on up to your index at the top. And inside your index, you've got several categories at the top here. We have edit index, tracks, and markers. Go to tracks. And under tracks, we see all of our available tracks. In this case, I just have one audio track and I have one bus 1. So if this eyeball right here is checked off, boom, bus 1's gone. I can't see it. I don't know where it is. You're texting me, or not texting me, you're dropping comments saying, Jay, I don't have bus 1. Don't know what you're talking about. You're wrong. Hold up. Just come in here in the index, tracks, and then turn on that bus 1. And make sure that it's the eyeball's lit there, so that way you can see that bus 1 or any of the other buses you might be sending things to. That way they're turned on. And same for your track. If you don't see your track, you're like, I can't find it. Where is it? You're blowing me up in the comments saying, I don't know what I'm talking about. Make sure that you've got that track 1 turned on. So that way you're seeing all of your audio buses and tracks and everything that you have for your audio. You're going to see it here in Resolve. The next thing we can take a look at is our patch settings. And our patch settings help us say, hey, DaVinci Resolve, take our bus 1, which is our main output for all of our audio, in this case by default, unless you changed it. Take that bus 1 and send it out of Resolve. I want to send it on out so I can hear my audio. So here's how we do that. Come on up to the Fairlight menu at the top, and we want to come down to Patch Input Output. Now, when you open the Patch Input Output, you're going to notice at the top we have Source on the left and we have Destination on the right. So for Destination, we want to make sure we have audio output selected. Under Source, hit that little drop down, and we want to come to Monitor Out. And now you notice that mine were already patched here. We can see my control room is patched to my Telestream, which is the screen recording software like we talked about earlier. And that's right and left channels. Control room, right and left channels are getting sent out. And over here, my receiving device or my destination is that Telestream audio capture, right and left channels. So right now they're patched. If I click on all these guys, they're patched and I can unpatch them if I wanted to. I'm not going to because I don't want to mess up my screen recording here. But you want to make sure that your control room is patched to whatever your audio output is. For example, when I'm not screen recording here, this is going to say something a little different. Maybe I'll throw a screenshot on the screen here of what it actually says. It should say my audio interface, and my control room should be patched to my audio interface. So that's up on the screen, and that's what that looks like. You want to make sure that the control room here is getting sent to whatever your output device is. So definitely check that and make sure that you've got some good patching here and things are going where they're supposed to go. Now, there are times when you're going to do all this and your audio is still not working. You see the waveforms. It looks like the meters are moving. You think you got the bus outputs patched right. You think your patching's good, and it's still not working, and you don't know why. A really easy thing to try is just to take your audio clip and bring it onto a new track, right? Because for whatever reason, sometimes I've had this before where tracks just are a little wonky, and I don't know what's going on, but when I drag it into a new track, voila, everything works out perfectly. So I'm just going to go ahead and right-click, say Add a new track, Stereo Track, and all I'm going to do is take my audio clip and drag it down into a new track. And for me, sometimes that'll fix the problem, whatever the problem might be. I don't know, but that's an easy thing that you can try to see if your audio starts working, and then either mute or delete your original track or clip if you copied it. Just see if it works, and if it works, then just delete that first track. Go ahead, boop, delete, where you at? Remove, nope, delete track. There we go. And now we're good to go. Let's see if we hear our audio.
Can't hear audio in DaVinci Resolve.
Okay, so I can hear my audio now. So that's a simple, easy trick that sometimes works to get your audio working for your clip and your tracks. Now, we did already talk about Bluetooth headphones a little bit. I would not recommend using them in DaVinci Resolve. For some reason, Resolve a lot of times just doesn't play nice with Bluetooth headphones, and especially ones that people have where, I don't know if it's gaming headphones, I'm not really sure, but where it's headphones that have the microphone and it's like a one-piece unit kind of thing. People have issues with that, both recording into Resolve as well as hearing from Resolve if it's Bluetooth. And even if it's wired with those kind of headsets, I think people might have some issues. But ideally, go with a wired headphone set. The Bluetooth can work, but for me, I've noticed there's a little bit of latency issues there when I'm trying to edit. You know, things aren't on. It's a little delayed in my headphones. Again, that could just be me. I don't know. But for your Bluetooth headphones, you want to make sure it's connected before you even open Resolve, so that way Resolve sees them once it's open. Sometimes you need to close Resolve and reopen it with any of these audio things. But with Bluetooth in particular, it's real finicky. I don't know why, but if you are using the Bluetooth, you probably need to check those audio input-output settings and preferences that we talked about earlier. You could take a look at that, make sure your Bluetooth headphones are set in there. But Bluetooth seems to cause a lot of issues. I don't know why. I would steer away from Bluetooth headphones when working in Resolve, if possible. But yeah, that's just a little word of advice, a little bit of a warning there on the Bluetooth. Sometimes you get some troubles with it in Resolve, and I would go wired headphones if you can. Now, let's say you've done all this and it's still not working. Another quick, easy thing to try is just give your computer a restart. Restart Resolve as well as restart your computer. Give everything a fresh restart. Again, make sure your audio outputs are set to what you want them to be before you open DaVinci Resolve. It's going to make your job a whole lot easier when you jump into Resolve. Resolve should see whatever your output is, but restarting a lot of times, you know, fixes problems. I don't know. A lot of times, just give it a restart, man. It's not working. Just give it a little restart there. So give that a try for sure and see if that helps. Now, the last thing that I want to show you here is the sample rate for your project in DaVinci Resolve. Now, this is going to be an issue when you're recording like this directly into Resolve, or if you're just listening on, speakers and headphones or whatever it might be. You need your sample rate for your device, whether it's a microphone for your input or whether it's speakers that you're listening to from Resolve. You want them to match. So, like I said in the beginning of this video, set your speakers or your output or your microphone to 48 kilohertz. That's what you want it set at on your computer. When you jump into DaVinci Resolve, you can check to see what your sample rate is and make sure that they match up. Here's how you do it. So I'm still in Fairlight here. It doesn't matter where you are in Resolve. We just want to get into the project settings, which is the little gear icon at the bottom here. Click on that. It's going to bring up your project settings. Now, we can jump into the Fairlight section right here. And at the top, we have timeline sample rate right here, 48,000. That's what I want it to be when I'm working with video and audio, 48,000. And you want it to match between your computer settings and DaVinci Resolve settings, like I said. Now, the problem with this is that you cannot change this after you start your project and you start adding things into your timeline. At least I don't think you can. I think this needs to be set when you first start your project, before you dump any footage in, before you create timelines or anything like that. You can't change it once you've already started your project. Now, if you did start your project and let's say it doesn't match what's on your computer for whatever reason, maybe this is, I don't even know what else is under here because mine's always at 48K. But if it's something different and it doesn't match and you're like, bro, what am I going to do now? What you can do is just create a brand new project, set the sample rate here to be 48,000, and then you can just jump into your other project, copy everything, jump into your new project and paste it all in there. And you should be good to go. But the sample rate is super important. Again, it's a big deal when you're recording into Resolve if your microphone doesn't match the sample rate of Resolve. So the microphone sample rate on your computer settings should match what's in Resolve. Could be a big deal when recording in, but it's also a big deal when you're listening. You want to make sure that the headphones or your speakers or whatever it might be, the sample rate matches. Otherwise, it's going to sound glitchy, staticky, crunchy. It's going to sound wonky and it's not going to be what you're looking for. It's going to cause you problems when you're trying to listen to your audio from DaVinci Resolve. So these are the majority of the main issues that I see when people are having no audio issues with DaVinci Resolve. It's going to be one of these settings or whether it's on your computer side, DaVinci Resolve side. There's a lot of things to check. I know this was a little bit of a long list here, but if you go through these step by step, see which one is going to work for you. it's probably only one of them that's causing the problem. It's not going to be all these things giving you issues here in Resolve and causing your audio not to work. It's going to be one of these things, generally. I could be wrong, but most of the time, it's going to be one of these things that are giving you a headache and causing problems for Resolve, which is why you can't hear any of your audio. Now, if you do find other issues, please comment down below. People are always looking through the comments on similar videos like this where, you know, there's could be other issues, especially on the PC side that I don't know. I work on a Mac, and there's sometimes PC issues that cause problems. One problem that used to be around was that Resolve didn't support those ASIO drivers for Windows, which would be like an audio interface, like a Scarlett audio interface, things like that. That's all cleared up. That should be good to go. Make sure your drivers are up to date. And then as long as your drivers are good, then if you're using an audio interface to either listen or record into Resolve, all that should be fixed up and be good. As far as, you know, the newest current version of DaVinci Resolve 18 is concerned. As far as I know, there's been no issues with drivers, ASIO drivers and things like that. You should be good to go. On the Mac side, you never had a problem. It always seemed to work okay on a Mac. But if you do find other fixes for you or for your computer or your DaVinci Resolve, leave that comment down below for us. Help out, you know, our fellow DaVinci Resolve users out there. And hopefully we can, you know, get everybody's audio working here in DaVinci Resolve. And then you can be off to editing your project and you don't got to worry about no audio. We're just going to make some sweet audio. If you want to make some awesome audio, I got a lot of videos on how to tune up your audio, make your vocals sound good, make your dialogue sound good, how to balance things, how to set levels, all that kind of stuff. That's all other fun audio stuff, and I've got lots of videos on that on my channel too that can help you out if you're interested in that.
So now that your audio is working here in DaVinci Resolve, you might be having some other little issues or things that you got questions about, and I've got a ton of videos about commonly asked questions here in DaVinci Resolve. Just search my channel for whatever you might be having trouble with, and there's a good chance I got a video on it. Or you can check out some playlists over here, and those can steer you in the right direction as well. Thank you guys so much for watching. I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video. You better come back. I want to see you. I want to see you guys again. All right, we'll see you guys. Peace.